thing that Ibrahim alayhi salam says is, لا أحب الآفلين, that I do not like those things that disappear. And from this, Nuruddin al-Razi rahimahullah says that we can derive a point regarding imkan, right? That there are certain things in the universe that are necessary, there are certain things that are possible or contingent, and there are certain things that are impossible. So that which is necessary, we will say that, in Arabic, we'll say they're wajib. They are wajib aqlan. And that which is possible, we'll say they're mumkin aqlan. And that which is impossible, we'll say they're mustahil aqlan. And so one of the things that Ibrahim alayhi salam he goes through is that he first sees the stars. And when he sees the stars, he realizes that eventually those stars, they go away, they disappear. So if something is there, then it's not there, it shows that this thing can be and also cannot be. It's possible that it is, and it's possible that these stars don't exist. Right? He says, no, this cannot be my deity, this cannot be my God. He says, this cannot be Allah. So then he sees the moon. He says, okay, the moon is much more, brighter, and compared to the stars, it's something that is much more prominent, and it's there. It doesn't fully disappear. We can see different phases of the moon. And so what happens eventually is that finally he sees that the moon also disappears. And he says that, no, this also cannot be, because that which is and then is not, then it has the possibility of being and also not being. So it needs another cause for it to exist. And then he says, this cannot be. So this moon cannot be anything for me. Then he sees the sun. And the same exact case also happens with the sun. He says, قال هذا ربي هذا أكبر. He says, this is my sustainer, and it's also the largest of them all. It's not just like, tiny like stars. It's also not, as big as the moon. It's even bigger than that. And it illuminates everything that we can see. He says, هذا أكبر. This must be my deity. And so what happens is that finally we see that the فَلَمَّا أَفَلَتْ, that sun also, eventually, it disappears. So then Ibrahim alayhi salam, he comes to this realization that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a being that is tangible and physical, that which comes and then goes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that is much more powerful than that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created the stars and the moon and the sun. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, he comes to this realization just through his observation. And that's the moment that he says, إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ حَنِيفًا. And the word that we see here, فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ. So he looks at all of these different celestial objects, and then the conclusion that he comes to is that actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created all of this. Allah is the one who created the heavens. And Allah is the one who created these celestial objects. And so from this, there's a point that we can derive that even if a person does not receive the message of Islam, they still have a responsibility to try and understand the true religion, the true deen. Just like Ibrahim alayhi salam did. He did not have any messenger that came to him. He did not have any prophet that came to him. What he did is he observed the universe. He said, based on this, it doesn't make any sense that any of this is my deity. As we can see, many other people throughout the world, they found, the fire, or they found stars, or the sun, or, certain trees, or certain other gods that they took as different, deities for themselves. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, no, he reaches to his fitrah. And he says, none of these things can actually be the true God. So from this we can understand that even if somebody is stuck in the Amazon forest, for example, and no message of Islam came to them, they still have a duty through their observation to, accept Islam. And this was the position of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa, this is one of the positions that he held. And later on, we also see Imam Abu Mansur al-Maturidi and Abu al-Mu'in al-Nasafi, rahimahullah, all of them, they took this position. That at the very least, minimum, without any sharia, at the very least, minimum, a person should be able to recognize Allah. Now, do you have to pray how many, salawat are there, how many rak'at are there. That the message has not come to you. So you're not responsible for that. But every single human being is responsible, at least for recognizing that there are certain signs that point towards the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll just mention that there is a slight difference of opinion on this. Because this also raises a question about, for example, people like the parents of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? We know that the parents of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no messenger came to them. The message of Islam did not reach them. Isn't it? So this raises a question. Were they Muslims? Were they, or not? And there are entire books that have been written on this topic. And one of the things that then arises is the issue of what we call Ahlul Fatra. Ahlul Fatra. The people that come in between, prophethoods, and the message does not reach them. Or anybody, for example, that exists anywhere in the world where they're cut off from society and they don't hear about the message of Islam. Then do they have to accept Islam or do they not have to accept Islam? So some scholars like Imam al-Ghazali and Imam al-Haramain al-Juwayni, his teacher, who was a very famous Shafi'i jurist, and others, many others, al-Baqillani, they took the position that unless someone receives Risala, then only they have to accept Islam. And if they do not receive the message of the Prophet, then they don't have to accept Islam. However, as I mentioned, Imam Hanifa and many other scholars, they disagreed with this. They said that, look, the dalil is there in Ibrahim alayhi salam's accepted. The Ibrahim alayhi salam, no prophet came to him. But just from observation, he realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. And this is something that, we can derive a lesson from. The other, incident that we can also ponder about is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala predicts a conversation that Isa alayhi salam will have regarding the Christians on the Day of Judgment. As we know that the Christians have said that Jesus is the Son of God, right? That Isa alayhi salam is the Son of Allah. This is the claim that they made. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, He will ask this. He says that, أَأَنْتَ قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ, that are you the one that told the people that اتخذوني وأمي إلهين من دون الله, that take me and my mother, they say Saint Mary, right? They'll say Mary, the mother of Jesus. And so are you the one that told them that take us as gods other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So Isa alayhi salam on the Day of Judgment, he'll say, قال سبحانك ما يكون لي أن أقول ما ليس لي بحق, that it's not for me to say that which is, that which I have no right to say. And he says, إن كنت قلته فقد علمته. He says, if I had said it, then you would have known it. تعلم ما في نفسي ولا أعلم ما في نفسك. So Isa alayhi salam, he says that you know that which is inside me, and I don't know that which is inside you. And likewise also Isa alayhi salam, he continues. He says, ما قلت لهم إلا ما أمرتني به. That I only told them, I didn't tell them anything except that which you commanded me to tell them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He predicts, He lets us know in the Quran that even though the Jews and the Christians, and especially the Christians, they have made a claim about Isa alayhi salam that is untrue regarding him. But on the Day of Judgment, Allah will bring him as a witness. And say, look at all these people, look at the Christians. Did you tell them this? And Isa alayhi salam will deny it. And one of the beautiful points that we can actually derive from this is that anything that a prophet says is also wahy. Right? Some people, they'll say, the Prophet ﷺ did something, it's only cultural. Right? Like some people will say that, wearing the thobe, this is not a sunnah. Some people say this. The wearing the thobe, this is not a sunnah. Why? Because this was just the Prophet ﷺ following his people, following his culture. Some people say this. But we know that this is untrue. For many, many reasons. Because anything that the Prophet ﷺ said or did, as a matter of fact, what the other prophets also said or did, is actually direct wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the dalil for it. That he says, مَا قُلْتُ لَهُمْ إِلَّا مَا أَمَرْتَنِي. I didn't say anything to them. There's not a single word that escaped my lips, except that you commanded me to say them. And like this, we also see in Surah Al-Najm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, He does not speak from his desires. In huwa illa wahyu yuha. It's only revelation that is revealed upon him. So if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says something, it is also wahy. A lot of people don't know this, but the level, Quran and Hadith, it's not that Hadith, Quran is more superior than Hadith in terms of being a proof, right? A lot of people misunderstand this, right? If we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for sure said something, then this has the same legal value as Quran, right? So this is something that we call Hadith Mutawatir, like a Hadith that is mass transmitted. So many people in every single era narrated it that it's impossible that this is a lie. So this, in terms of its legal value, its legal weight, its weight in fiqh, in Islamic law, is the same thing as a verse of the Quran. Why? Because the verse of the Quran is also wahy, and the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also wahy. So then, why is it that we give more preference to the Quran than Hadith? Because many ahadith, they are what we call solitary reports, khabr al-wahid, that a person cannot say 100%, like, the way you see the sun, and you know that the sun exists, right? You do not know 100%. So I'll give you an example. The hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, right? Very famous hadith, all of us know it, right? So if you look at the chain for this, it's a sahih chain, it's an authentic chain. And it goes, for example, if I narrate it then from me, to my teacher, to his teacher, all the way to the Prophet ﷺ. If you look 3 levels down, it's a solitary report. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu is the one who narrates this hadith. And then if you look at the people beneath him, it's one narrator. They're all truthful, all, reliable people. They all had good memories. But we say that this is a khabr al-wahid. This is a solitary report. Most likely the Prophet ﷺ did say this. There's a small chance that he did not say it, right? And as opposed to a hadith that is mutawatir, like you have, dozens of people in each level of the chain that separately narrated from the Prophet ﷺ. So that we know 100% that he said it. So if we have a hadith like this, and we have an ayah of the Quran, in terms of law, in terms of fiqh, they have the same value. Why? Because this is wahy, this is also wahy. The difference between the two, the fuqaha, they explain that the Quran is wahy that is matlu, it is recited wahy. And hadith is wahy that is ghayr matlu, it is not recited. So, this is also something for us to keep in mind, that Isa alayhi salam, one thing that he says is, مَا قُلْتُ لَهُمْ إِلَّا مَا أَمَرْتَنِي بِهِ. I didn't say anything to them except that which you told me to tell them, right? So any prophet, any nabi, as long as they say something, this is something that comes, directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah grant us the tawfiq to, understand this and to apply it. On the topic of the Christians and the Jews, one important point for us to, derive. There are actually a few really interesting passages from yesterday that I didn't do tafsir. And we mentioned we do tafsir of them, and we're not going to have enough time. But I'll just mention one thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. One principle, he says, لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. And he says, وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى. He says that the people that you will see that will be the harshest on the believers are going to be al-Yahuda wal-Ladina ashraku. Is it the people that, not every single Jewish person, but you will see generally the Jewish people, and wal-Ladina ashraku, the people that are polytheists, the mushrikun. And ajib, if you look, fast forward, 2025, 2026, if you look at the only 2 states in the entire world, we have to be aware of geopolitics. The only 2 states in the entire world that want to have their own ethnicity only, and they want to get rid, especially of Muslims, and nobody else, are these 2 groups, right? I'm not going to name the 2 countries, but you can do the math, inshallah, right? Same rhetoric, same arguments that they make, same everything. They'll say that, Muslims do not belong here. They were, the Mughal came, they invaded this country. We need to have, only this religion in this country. Right? And you will see that this, in the last 2 elections, that same party is the one that won. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, right? And they're very close allies with the others. There's other people also who say, these are not humans. If this baby grows up, he's probably going to become a terrorist. We need to kill him anyways, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already predicted this in the Quran. He says, لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً. In terms of enmity, the people that you will see, the fiercest are these two groups, right, towards the believers. Again, it doesn't mean that every single one of them is like that. Many Jewish people, you see that they love Muslims. Many, Hindu or other, polytheistic people, you will see that they also love Muslims. I remember when I was traveling in India, it was the day of Eid. We went to this one store in Lucknow. There's a couple that was sitting there, old couple, and they were saying, we really love you guys, and our people tell us not to mingle with you and not to go to your Eid, but we also believe only that there is only one God, right? And they were saying, we don't say this out loud in front of everybody, but I'm just telling you. It's an old couple. So I'm not saying every single person is like that, right? But general principle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions is this. And He says, وَلَا تَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى. And the people that you will see the closest in terms of love towards the Muslims are the people that say, Inna Nasara. We are Christians. This also is something, if you fast forward today, you will see that many lands that are, many states that are majority Christians, they'll be very accommodating, they'll be very, welcoming of Muslims, and they will allow Muslims to practice their own, religion, have their own rights, and so on and so forth, right? And of course, you have alliances, right? You have certain groups of Christians also that ally with, other groups, and they don't want any Muslims as well. But this is just a majority rule, right? If you look in the Quran, you will see that these are majority rules, and if you apply them today, you will see this to be true as well. And again, as I said, there are only two states in the entire globe that are, we can say, racist, that are elitist. They will say that we are different, and we need to have this ethno-state. There's only two states. And one of them is الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, and the other one are the ones that claim they're Jewish. So, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is true, and it's always going to be true. May Allah allow us to learn from the Quran, to benefit from the Quran. آخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. It depends what it means. Like interfaith means many different things. People have kind of lost the sense of what it even means. If it's just dialogue, like it's just conversation about like this is what our religion says, this is what your religion says, then there's no issue. Yeah. So again, these things depend. Like what exactly is meant by. If it's just like a class, what is Islam, that type of thing, then there's no harm in it. But it depends. If obviously laws of Sharia are being broken, then it should not be the case. Right? Of course, we should not. And also, like if, for example, for some people, interfaith means that all religions are equal, right? And this is also false. We're not supposed to believe that, right? As Muslims, we know that Islam is haqq, and they believe that Christianity is haqq, and they believe that Judaism is haqq, and that's their right to exercise. It doesn't mean that we have to now say that all religions are equal. Who said we have to say this? This is our opinion. Our opinion is that Islam is the truth, right? It doesn't mean we cannot coexist. It doesn't mean that we cannot have peace, right? We can have peace. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived in Madinatul Munawwara. He was Muslim, and there were other Jews there. There were other Christians there, right? It doesn't mean you cannot coexist. You can coexist. You can live with each other. You can have peace. However, we believe that Islam is haqq. So if interfaith means that all religions are equal, that's also untrue. We do not believe that all religions are equal. Does that mean that you have to treat people of different religions differently? No. At the end of the day, everyone's human. So if you're greeting a person who is Muslim, you can greet someone who is also non-Muslim. Greeting as in like you say hi, hello, how are you? How are you doing? Right? Doesn't mean now you have to treat this person like this and that person like that. Of course, people that are Muslims, there are certain huquq that we owe them. Like for example, they give us salam, we have to do raddu salam. If a person is sick, you have to go and visit them, and so on and so forth. There are certain rights that Islam makes wajib upon us. So we have to maintain those things. So I think the main thing when it comes to interfaith is that we just have to be principled. We have to know our usul and maintain those. inshallah.